Welcome to today's lab. We will be using two different technologies to complete this lab. The first one is going to be Microsoft Excel work file that we used on a previous lab where we compared the number of crimes that occurred in three different states during 3 different years. We will take that work file, modify it, and create a new Excel file, and then we will use tables and charts created in that new work file to create a PowerPoint presentation. So what you're looking at here is the PowerPoint presentation that will be resulting on today's work. It's going to have only 4 slides. We'll walk you through some of the highlights of the work that you will need to do to accomplish today's task. This is Microsoft PowerPoint. It has a very similar layout to Word and Excel. You have home, you have the review area where you're going to do spell checks and different formatting options. The first slide is called a title slide, and here it has a title of what the work that you're going to be doing. It has a subtitle to it, and notice that there are slide numbers in each of one of the slides. Here is the second sheet, and it has a title for this particular slide and some content. The content is going to be in bullets, and notice that the bullets have 2 different levels. You have a first level, a second level, which is indented further along. In the third sheet, there will be a table that we will be producing in Excel and then copying it and pasting it into Microsoft PowerPoint. So you will recognize the information from a previous lab. Here we have 3 states, Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and 3 different years with a number of crimes recorded for each year. The last slide is going to be new to us from our previous experience. So if you recall from the past, when we compared the 3 states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, we found that Pennsylvania had a relatively high crime rate compared to Virginia and Maryland. In the work today, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of analysis to see what is behind these numbers and if they reflect reality or not. What we will be doing is we will be putting side by side the comparison of total crimes to a comparison of crimes per square miles. So if you notice here, the state of Maryland is much higher than Virginia and Pennsylvania when you take the number of crimes and you divide it by the square miles of each state. Pennsylvania is a very large state in terms of square miles. Virginia is relatively small. Maryland is in the middle. So you see how the numbers will change. So now we'll take a look at the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to be using to produce today's work. This view has 2 Excel work files side by side. On the left is a sample of the lab that we did a few weeks ago comparing the crimes of the 3 states for the 3 years. So if you recall, here we have the table that has the 3 states, the 3 years. Then we did some statistics for those 3 states, and we created a couple of charts. This is a line chart, and on a separate worksheet, we have a column chart representing the data on the table that we saw previously. On the right, I have a similar worksheet, and in this one you have the crime data, but it does not have the statistics that we calculated before. And we have a separate table on the right that has different values. So what we have done on the table here on the right is that we have done a calculation based on the square areas of the 3 states. So here we have Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and the respective areas of each one of the states. This area is in square miles. Next to this area column, we have the 3 years, but in the 3 years, what we have is a calculation. What we're doing is dividing value of the crimes and divides it by the area in square miles, and you have a result over under the year for each one of the 3 years. Then we have a column chart that we have created under that. The column chart now is based on this value over on the right, where we have the 3 states, and we have below it the crimes per square mile for each one of the states. So notice if we compare it to the previous column chart that we had before, the state of Pennsylvania for the 3 years had high crimes, well, total number of crimes when we compare it against the other 2 states. But when we look over here, we see a different story where the state of Pennsylvania, when we look at the number of crimes per square miles, is relatively small compared to the state of Maryland. So we see how data can be used to illustrate 2 different sides of the story. Which side is correct is a matter of opinion. Which one is closer to the truth? That is something that we have to decide as individuals. But it's a good experiment to see how data can be used to tell different stories. Let's proceed from here, and we'll start working in converting the work file on the left to look like the one on the right. So let's get going. The first thing we're going to do is open the Excel work file that we used on the previous lab. This was the lab on crime analysis. If you recall, we have 2 worksheets, the violent crime data, and we have my favorite chart. The work starts by saving the file with the new file name. Then we're going to delete my favorite chart worksheet. So here's the worksheet right here where we had created a chart, moved it here. So we're going to delete this sheet. We do that by right-clicking on the tab and then looking for the delete command. So I'm going to press delete, and that gets rid of it. And so now that worksheet is gone. The next thing we're going to do is delete the remaining chart here. So there's only 1 chart left, so I'm going to click on the edge of it and just press the delete key on the keyboard, and that should get rid of it. So now we're going to delete the 4 columns that we created before with statistical calculations by selecting the 4 columns. I'm going to select the first one and then drag to the right so we have all the columns selected. I'm going to right click and press the delete selection. If you recall, we had formatted the table before. We had given it particular formatting as a table. We need to convert this table format into a range. So we're going to select all the area of the table right here. And now we're going to go to the table tab. We're going to click on the table tab, and we're going to look for a button that says convert to range. So we're going to duplicate this worksheet now. We're going to create a copy to it for it. And so what we're going to do is right click on the tab and select move or copy. So what we're going to do is create a copy and click OK. And now the new tab, we're going to rename it. We'll go back to the original one. So we have 2 tabs, adjusted violent crime and violent crime data. So now in the violent crime data, we're going to insert a 3D column chart using all the data in the crime table. So we're going to select all the data, click on state, and then select all of the data, and I'm going to insert a 3D column chart. There we have a 3D column chart. This chart will have to be modified as described. I'm going to do a few modifications. The main one that I'm concerned about is that the states show up on the horizontal axis and the years are going to show up in this uh, three-dimensional axis right here. So if yours are reversed, what you do is you right click and click on the select data, and here's a button that you're going to see where you switch the rows and columns, and when you do that, then things will be right again. You're going to be doing other changes, and I've skipped ahead to show you what the table will look like after doing the changes. So I've renamed the chart title. I have made sure that the states are in the horizontal axis and the years are in this third dimension. I removed the legend and added a data table with legends at the bottom. Next, we're going to go visit the adjusted violent crime worksheet that we created before. We're going to copy the contents of the original table 2 columns to the right. So here I've selected the original table. I'm going to right click and copy, and I'm going to go 2 columns to the right, and I'm going to right click and paste it right here. So here are the two tables sitting side by side, the first one in the original. I'm going to be placing word art above the second table. We're going to insert a column after the state names, and we're going to name the heading of this new table, or this new column is going to be called area, and below that we're going to type in the area of the 3 states, area in square miles. I've entered the area for the 3 states. Now I want to put them in a similar format that I had done before, so I'm going to select the 3 areas and I'm going to give it a style, and the style that I'm going to use is the one that I had before, which was (0), so it doesn't have any decimal points and it's going to match the others also. So now we have them in a similar format as the ones on the right, where we have commas but no decimal points. Now I'm going to clear the contents under the years, because here's where we're going to do our calculations, and I'm going to select all of them and press the delete key. When I do that, then I leave the space in blank, and now I can enter the formulas that I'm interested here. The calculation of the square miles, or the crimes per square mile. So we're going to insert a formula here which does that calculation. Just remember, as always, a calculation or formula starts with an equal sign. So we're going to enter here the contents of the crimes for 2012 for Maryland. And then it's going to be divided by the square area of Maryland. If you notice that it's the number 2 here, but we're going to be adding decimal points to this to get a more precise value, because what we have for the moment being is a rounding of values right now. I'm going to leave up to you to figure out how to figure the rest of it. If you look at the instructions, there is a bonus associated if you successfully complete all the calculations using a absolute cell reference or a fixed cell reference. We have used this in the past, and if you look at this week's module, you're going to find an additional video to explain you how to do that. So I'm going to advance forward and do the rest of the calculations, enter them now. So we're going to adjust the decimal places to 2 decimal places. So I've selected the area I'm interested in here, and I'm going to go to home. The normal values, I'm going to go over here and increase the number of decibels to 2 decimal values. So that's 2 point, and there you go, 2 decibel values. Right? So you see that before there was some rounding that wasn't being applied, but now we have a little bit more precise numbers. So now we're going to create a three-dimensional column chart, but we're going to do something different than we've done in the past. We're going to use non-contiguous selection to create a chart that's going to use the state names and the crimes per square mile, but not the area. What we're going to do is non-contiguous area selections. So I'm going to select the 3 states and the heading for the state. Then I'm going to press and hold the control key, and while I press the year and drag from the year down and select the years and the crimes per square miles. So notice that selected we have the state, the 3 names, the 3 years, and the data below it. And now I'm going to insert my 3D column chart below that. And now you have a view of the completed chart. We're going to save this work file, and it's going to be used as one of the 2 files that you have to submit for this assignment. Next, we're going to move on to PowerPoint. As in all the other Microsoft Office tools, we start with the screen that gives you a choice of themes, and we're going to start our PowerPoint presentation for this lab using a particular theme. There's various themes to choose from, so you have a wide choice over here. You can choose whatever theme you want, but I strongly suggest that for this exercise you keep the choice to a relatively simple theme, and one that I suggest would be the crop theme. So I'm going to start my presentation with the crop theme. So PowerPoint automatically creates one slide for you, and it's a title slide. But let's take a quick look over what the PowerPoint interface looks like. So on the top you have a ribbon, and you're already familiar with the ribbon as you saw in Excel and in Word, and it has various tabs. Here's our good friend Home that has, as always, the most popular choices. We also have Review, and you've seen it before in using things like when we select Review, we have spell check and others. On the left side, we have the navigation bar of Excel, and we're going to have a list of the various slides that we're going to see. We can move between slides and rearrange them by clicking and dragging. And on the center is the main area where you compose a slide. So this is where we're going to start off. Here with the title slide, and I'm going to create a title slide right now, and when we click on over here we can create a title. So this is an example of what the presentation is going to look like, and as always follow the written instructions for the exact information that you need for the assignment. So I'm going to write a title, and I'm going to write a subtitle for it. Now that we have created the main content, we're going to modify the slide by we're going to add slide numbers by going to the Insert tab, looking for the header and footers under the text group. And here we have various choices. What we're going to do is add slide numbers. And that's the only choice we have for this particular exercise. So I'm going to click a button that says Apply to All, so that all our slides are going to have slide numbers. And here in the lower right hand corner of the slide, you're going to see that this is slide number 1 in this area right here. The next thing we're going to do is add a new slide, and we're going to navigate to the Home tab to do that. And here's a new slide button. There's a drop-down list under it, and what we're going to add is a title and content slide. So here we're going to go over this slide, title and content and click on that. So we have now two slides. You can see on the navigation we have our main slide that we created before, or an introduction slide, and now we have a blank title and content. And in the title area, I'm going to type the title, and in the content area, I'm going to enter some bullets, and the bullets you can cut and paste, or you can just type them in from the instructions for this one. So here I'm going to go ahead and type them in. Now I entered the contents for slide number 2. Notice that it has a slide number 2 at the bottom because we had created or added slide numbers in the header and footer areas. So in this slide, I want to make sure that I make these 3 values over here in the area indented. So what we're going to do is navigate over to the home screen, and in the area for paragraphs, we see a button that allows us to indent paragraphs. So I'm going to indent this one just a little bit more. So it looks something like this. Now that we have 2 slides, we're going to add a third one. So we're going to add a new title and content slide like we did before. So it's going to be essentially the same format as before. The next step that we're going to do is paste a table from the modified Excel lab that we created earlier. So I'm going to navigate briefly over to Excel and look for that table. The table that I'm interested in is the violent crime data table. So that's going to be in the violent crime data table. So I'm going to grab the contents. First I'm going to click on the state and drag across, and I'm going to copy this into the clipboard. And now that I'm going to copy it, I'm going to go to my PowerPoint slide, and in this content area I'm going to right click and paste. And here's the table. Now the table, it doesn't look very interesting at this point. It's rather small. So what we're going to do is we're going to resize and adjust the table to take advantage of the content area we have. So I'm going to expand it, make it larger, like such. And as you see, the font is very small, so I'm going to click on the edge, and I'm going to go to the Home tab. And under the font group, I'm going to look for a font that's going to fill up that area, and I'm going to apply to this table now a style that I like. So I'm going to click on the edge, and notice that we have a new tab here. It's a table with table tools. This is similar to what we saw before in Word and Excel, where the ribbon is dynamic and it adds tools as you need them in the different areas. So I'm going to go into the table tools, into the design group, and I have various choices of tables that I'm going to try to keep it relatively simple, but at the same time something that I like. So this is a simple one. So I'm going to align the cell contents. As you see, all the contents of the cells are left aligned, and it looks like the contents also at the bottom of the cell. So I'm going to work with the cell alignment. So I'm going to click on the edge of the cell again, and under the layout group, those layout alignment. So I'm going to align them to the center, and I'm going to align them vertically also. So now you see that the contents are aligned in the center of each cell, and centered horizontally and centered vertically. So that looks a little bit better. And the next thing I'm going to do, I like the size of the tool. I like the size of the table. So I want to make sure that the whole table is centered on the slide. So I'm going to align the whole table with respect to the slide margins. So I'm going to go to the table tools, I'm going to click on layout, and then over in arrange, and I'm going to align it again, align center and align middle. So now the table is in the middle of the slide, so it looks a little bit better. So the next thing we're going to do is create a text box and put it down at the bottom of this table. And inside the text box, we're going to have a link to the source of this data. So to insert a text box, I'm going to go over to Insert. And I'm going to look for text box. And now I have an arrow where I'm going to go ahead and draw a text box. And inside this text box, we're going to write the source. So now I've entered into the text box the source of the data, the name of the source, and I've also added a link. There is a bonus in this lab. If you create a live link that allows us to click on the slide and navigate over to the website, that's bonus points. You don't have to do that. That's just additional. I suggest you try it. And that concludes this third slide. Now we're going to go to a new slide, and we're going to add the fourth and last slide for this project. So I'm going to go to the home, and we're going to add a different slide type, and it's going to be a to content slide. So we are going to navigate. We have a to content slide over here, and notice that we have a title and two content areas. So what we're going to do is add two charts. We're going to add two charts from our Excel work, one on the left and one on the right. So the first thing we're going to do is add a title. And now I'm going to insert the charts. So in the first chart, I'm going to grab the violent crime total chart. So I'm going to click on the edge of it right here, and I'm going to copy it to my clipboard. Then I'm going to navigate to Excel and place it on the left. I'm going to click on the content area and paste. And here is a chart right here. Now I'm going to do the same with the other chart that we're interested in. So I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet, and I'm going to navigate to the adjusted violent crime per square miles, and I'm going to grab this chart, click on the edge of it, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard and to paste it to the right. And here are the two charts side by side, and I think they look kind of attractive. Let's go navigate through our slide presentation now and see what it looks like. So we have the comparison between this is the title the chart, and as I said before, it has a title area and a subtitle area with slide numbers. The next one has some content with bullets. Remember that there's a particular section of bullets that is indented. We had the total violent crime table that we copied from Excel, and we pasted it in, and we adjusted it in terms of size and fonts and alignment, internal within the table and also within the slide. The last slide has the two charts. The chart on the left is the total crimes for the region, and on the right we have a comparison of the same data, but this time dividing the number of crimes by square miles of each one of the states. And so this concludes our lab today. Remember that when you submit, you must submit two files. The modified Excel file that we created for this lab and this PowerPoint presentation. I hope you enjoyed and you liked. I'd like to hear your comments, and catch you in class later on. Goodbye.